Thank you, Ramji, for inviting me and for this really good summary of my work. And I want to talk about Cownomics, but before I talk about the book and my research, I just wanted to mention that I actually wrote this book because I was expecting that a book like this will already exist, and I did not find it like 2 3 years ago when I was searching and I was very interested in this subject. So I just decided to write it. It was not like something which I had in mind for a long time or something, but I didn't find it, so I decided to write it. And the more I researched the subject, the more I realized the need for all of us to know the facts which I'm about to present. So, as Ramji already mentioned, like I have tried to cite scientific research as well as actually shastras wherever it's possible. So, I want to combine the science and the Hindu spirituality because, as many of you may already be aware of it, Hindu spirituality is very scientific, unlike many other cultures. So I don't want, obviously, I'm not here to comment on other cultures, but I'm just here to talk about our culture, which has always been scientific. Now, this whole research and all, after all, it is for the modern mind, and the modern mind has grown up with certain ideas, certain ways of credentialism, and all those things. So it's important for us to absorb how scientific our culture is through the modern lens. So I'll just share my slides with you. So I hope you can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. So of course the name is Cownomics, but I first want to start with the Hindu principle. Is the whole idea behind of it is concerned. So I just want to quote the enlightened master Raman Maharshi here. For those of you who have not heard the story, there's a very famous story in which one of his disciples goes and asks Raman Maharshi that how should we treat others, and he just very simply answers, there are no others. So if you can really absorb the sentiment of what Bhagwan answered his disciple, you will actually understand the whole presentation, whatever I'm about to present. It's like a one-line summary of whatever I'm about to present. So the philosophy, you can say, or the tenets, whatever you want to call it, of Hindu spirituality is that we are all connected, we are all divine. That is the idea behind Advaita Vedanta, and that we all creatures, all beings, everything is one more manifestation of that same divinity. So when you hurt others, you're actually hurting yourself, and when you hurt others, that itself is karma. Karma is not something special which you earn through something else. That very action of hurting somebody else is karma, and it comes back to you in ways you may not be able to calculate. And that how it comes back to you and how you're earning karma by hurting animals, especially something as sacred as the cow, is what I'm going to explain with a little more logical breakdown, which we can actually absorb. So just to give a little bit of a background of the cow, how central it was in the Hindu society. And because I wanted to actually explicitly mention this, because many people have now started raising questions, was the cow even sacred in Hinduism? Or is it just a myth? Is it something you guys are making up? So, of course, there are tons of references. I just wanted to pull one, and these references are also given in my book if you want to read. But okay, the Sanskrit text is coming garbled. I'm sorry about that. I had actually typed it in, but for some reason it's not coming properly. But this is the verse in which basically what he has mentioned in the Rig Veda, sorry, Samveda, is that the Som Rasa is actually present in the cow, and it is actually available to human beings in the form of the milk of the cows. So this is the the status which is given to the milk of the cows and to the cow herself, right? And this is only one verse. In another verse, he has actually said in the Agama, in the Shiva Agamas, it is mentioned that even the dust from the feet of the cow is sacred and has healing properties. So, just in the interest of time, I kept only one verse in the slide, but I have given all these verses even in my book. That even something like the drishti of the cow is actually healing for human beings, and this is given as a legitimate way of getting healed in our scriptures. And I could go on and on if I have to just talk on this one topic. But just to give you a background, just a very brief background of how sacred the cow was to Hindus. So I will keep coming back to this point again and again throughout this presentation. But just for an introduction purpose, the cow was considered as not a means of wealth, but as the wealth. It was a symbol of wealth in the Vedic society. So every time, actually, there are so many verses in the Vedas, Rig Veda, Sam Veda, all of the Vedas, where the Yajmans were offering havi to in the home kund. They are actually praying to Indra and all the devtas that please bless us with cows. Please keep our cows protected. Please let our cows be fearless when they are residing with us. Let them multiply and have lots of progeny. So all these kind of ideas are present again and again and again in the Vedas, not just once. So this is how sacred the cow was. Now coming to where we are today. So here in this book, actually, I've talked about all animals because I don't want this thing to be like, oh, only cow is sacred to us and we don't care about other animals. It's not that we don't care about other animals. It's just that the cow has the most sacred status in our Hindu spirituality. So to take a 360-degree view of exactly how much animals are tortured as of today. So these are 2018 statistics, and the 2021 statistics would be much worse than this. So if you count this, all the numbers which are given, this is from a website called Our World in Data. We slaughtered at least 72.51 billion animals in 1 year. And as you can probably, think about it, this is more than 10 times the whole human population, which is getting slaughtered in just 1 year. That is how much death, torture, and destruction we are waging on animals. So this is the number. I just wanted to put the number out there first. So all of these animals are getting killed just for food, right? Now, this whole industry, the meat and even the dairy industry, the leather industry, all the industries which are centered on torturing animals, on slaughtering animals. Now, these industries, they don't come like, it's not like a packaging business which does not have any side effect. It's not even packaging business might be having a side effect, but what I'm trying to say is that, when we think of meat, we just think of it as something on the plate. We are not thinking of where is it coming from, what is the process of getting it, what is happening to those animals at that time, and what is the side effect of that whole industry. Because see, this is not like one or two animals getting picked by one random person or something. This is an industry. This whole process of killing animals, this whole thing has been industrialized. And this whole, because these numbers are not possible without industrialization of these industries, of this, business line. I don't know, I don't like calling it a business line, but unfortunately, that's what it has become. And as you can see, the trends are that, the richer countries have obviously been much, much more proactive. They have much bigger consumption of meat in per capita terms. So if you this statistic, this chart is sort of like a comparison, a rough comparison between meat consumption and GDP per capita. So you can see the richer a country is, the more they have been consuming meat per capita. Now compare this. In United States, the per capita consumption of meat is more than 120 kgs per year. Whereas in India, it is something like 4 to 5 kgs per year per capita. So even though I know that, and this is also part of the same study or another study, that with the growing purchasing power in South Asian countries like India, unfortunately many people are moving towards non-vegetarianism. So the consumption has been on the increase, but we are still nowhere, compared with what the Western world is. And in the last few years, maybe around 2016 or 17, there was a slight downturn in meat consumption in the United States, but it has again picked up. So I know there is a growing vegan movement in the United States, but although that trend is very loud in media circles and everything, but the consumption, the number you can say, or per capita kgs, whatever you want to call it, that has not really gone down. That is the reality. Now maybe there is an off balance that more people are becoming vegan and the others are eating more, God knows. Or maybe because there is a population growth also there, so maybe there is average, uh, net it turns out to be more meat consumption. But as of now, that is the fact, that consumption has only grown in the West. It has not really gone down. It dipped for a few years, but it has picked up again. So I wanted to point out that there are many people in India, more than I think 300 million people in India are vegetarians. So even the non-vegetarians in India are actually partially non-vegetarian. It's not that they eat non-vegetarian, in breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They are occasionally non-vegetarian, not the same as that, in every meal you are consuming meat in some form or the other. Of course, this trend is changing with the growing, loss of cultural values and cultural roots and all that. But um, that is how it is. Now this, I was just explaining that, this whole industry, it does not come without its cost. And that's why I call the book Cownomics, not cowpathy, not cowism, not any other word, because I wanted to actually pinpoint at ecological cost, but also the economic cost associated with all these other effects of these industries. So for, like here, this chart shows you the fresh water withdrawals per kilogram of food product. Right now, in this, you can see, of course, a comparative study of how much. So here, beef, dairy herd, and beef herd is written separately because in some countries they are separate, but in many countries they are actually the same. So you can refer to both. This is the comparison of how much freshwater withdrawal means, how much fresh water is lost per kg. Now you see, this is per kg, 2,700 liters of water per kg of beef is lost. Now imagine, if you how much water do you drink per day? 2 liters, 4 liters, 5 liters. So for 1 kg beef somebody is consuming, imagine, almost like maybe 1 year of water they drink has been lost forever. This fresh water withdrawal, by the way, cannot be recovered by any normal means. Once it is lost, it's lost. There's a very huge cost again to clean or pure process or chemically purify that water, which, and a lot of times it's not worth it. So this fresh water is the water from our lakes, from our rivers, which is getting lost. That's the definition of fresh water. And once it's lost, it's like lost forever. You can assume that it's forever, because even once you actually purify it, it will not be usable as drinking water. We cannot use it for the same purpose for which you can use fresh water. So this is now again another comparison chart which talks about the land use of, per kg, whatever you want to call it, of food. Thousand, actually this is per 1,000 kilocalories of food, not per kg. This is in square meter. You can see how much land is used for producing beef. Compare that with, say, tomatoes, or compare that with peas. Peas are a good source of protein also, right? Compare beef, lamb, and mutton with how much land is being taken by peas. So you can see that it's not a 1:2 kind of a difference. It's a 1:200 kind of a difference, or 1:50 kind of a difference. So you're consuming, now imagine countries like India especially. where land is scarce, and even now in other countries, land is becoming scarce because of these kind of practices. It's not that land is infinite. Land is one source on the planet which is finite. You cannot create more land, right? If you run out of one thing, you can manufacture it, but land is something you cannot manufacture. You can only do vertical farming, but you cannot actually create land, right? And land has multiple uses. So this is like the comparison chart of how much land is used, and this is another comparison chart. I'm not able to see the whole chart myself for some reason. I'm seeing the top thing is okay, let's move on from this one. Now this you can see the protein efficiency. Now the efficiency means for the amount of protein the animal is consuming, how much protein you are getting in the form of meat. This is a very important chart actually. So if you see this chart, the protein efficiency of beef is 3.8%. Now, that means that if I'm just talking in say grams, if you feed 100 or 100 kgs, let's talk in kgs. If you're feeding 100 kgs of protein, not feed, protein to the animal. Now, feed will be something several times more of that because whatever you're feeding to the animal, 100% will not be protein. Now, I'm talking about 100 kgs protein. If I feed 100 kgs protein to a cow, you will get only 3.8 kgs protein in the form of beef. So the people who say that you should eat meat to get protein, you should understand how flawed that argument is. And a lot of people say that I eat beef to be strong, right? That is what the expressions, and that is what all the like the language is like that, right? Beef up, and you need to beef up your security. The connotation itself of beef is that it gives strength. Now you can see how much cost. What is the cost of that? So instead of getting 100 kg protein, which you could have got from plant-based resources, you're actually getting only 3.8 kg protein. The rest is lost, and of course, we're not even talking about how much cruelty is involved in that process just yet. So I'm going through the statistics first, and I'll combine all of these and I'll explain the overall impact of all of these, because I wanted to give the numbers, because without numbers it sounds like a story. It sounds like it's my opinion. But I wanted to specifically give these numbers because, see, there is a very common narrative that the people who promote beef ban are unscientific. This is the imagery. This is this is what we are projected as, not just in India, even outside India, that we are worshipping cows, so we are regressive. And if you're not asking for a beef ban, we are regressive. So I just wanted to give these numbers to show that this is actual science, these are actual numbers, and there is nothing regressive about it. So you can see this breakup of emissions from just the food industry. Now, this guy has broken up 26% of global emissions is just from food. And now from that food, you can see almost a very big percentage is just from this meat and dairy industry. Right now, you can see crop for animal feed, livestock and fish farms, and land used for livestock. So if you add up everything which is used for livestock or for all of this, see, actually crops or human food is only 21%. A lot of the rest of it is actually going into the meat and dairy industry. So that means that, of course, I mean, I have seen a lot of this a lot, so I don't really need just this chart, but we know that there is so much emissions involved in every step of the process in the whole meat industry. So this is like, if I start talking about details, it becomes very, very detailed. That's why I'm trying to avoid throwing too many numbers at you also. But even just the energy consumption of meat and dairy industry is mind-boggling. If tomorrow we don't have fossil fuels, if we for some godforsaken reason we run out of fossil fuels tomorrow, the meat industry will grind to a halt. That is how energy dependent the meat industry is. The prices of meat and the prices of even dairy, especially in the West, where it is a lot more energy intensive, they will skyrocket through the roof. They will shoot up like anything, and that is why many people don't realize it, but the energy crisis is very closely interlinked with the food crisis, because first of all, they give out a lot of emissions. That is one aspect of it. And the second thing is they're using up a huge percentage of fossil fuels, a huge percentage. And, people say, oh, it's using electricity, but a very big percentage of electricity is coming from fossil fuels. We have not switched to 100% renewables anywhere. Any of the big countries, maybe some small countries somewhere may have switched, but there is no country which is using only renewable energy. So this is the downsides of the way it is existing right now. And this is just one example. Amazon forest is not the only forest, by the way, but Amazon forest is one of the biggest forests in the world. And a few years ago, there was a big, brouhaha about the burning of the Amazon forest. But I wanted to actually point this out, that deforestation of the Amazon forest, the Brazilian Amazon forest, has actually been happening for many, many years, many decades. Actually, it just so happened that it caught media attention in 2019. It did not get media attention before that, but you can look at the chart and see how much deforestation is happening. And all this deforestation is because of beef farming. I don't know if you're aware of it, Brazil is one of the biggest consumers as well as producers of beef. So beef was like the staple kind of a thing. In somebody was, I think I was getting some disturbance. I've muted the person. So beef was like a very staple part of their diet in Brazil, unfortunately. And unfortunately, they have actually imported zebu cows from India, and they have zebu cows there who are getting slaughtered. That is probably one of the more sadder aspects of it. And today, India is actually trying to import back those zebu cows to India, because in India now the zebu cow population is going down because they did so much of, they wanted high yield cows, so they reproduced so much of Jersey cows. Now we are actually low on zebu cow population, the purebred, that is. Anyway, so if you see actually, even this agriculture in this chart, in this pie chart, they've only said agriculture. But in this agriculture, also a big part of it actually goes into growing the feed for the cattle. So this is not just agriculture for human food, but a big part of it is actually growing the livestock feed. So it's more than 70%. That number, what you're saying, as seen as responsible for deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon, it's more than 70%. Now, see, Brazilian Amazon is a rainforest. So once it is destroyed, it is again gone forever. It's an ecosystem. It's a natural ecosystem. And when the forest is gone, it is not just the trees are gone. There's a whole lot of wildlife which is destroyed forever, especially because these are burnt down. It's not even that they are just cut down. These forests are burnt down. So you can see the next slide. This is how bad it is. You can see this is a NASA photograph of the burning of the Amazon forest. And again, this is not the only forest. There are many forests in the world which are getting burnt down just for beef. Because you see, this beef industry is very, very resource intensive. It uses a lot of land, it uses a lot of water, it uses a lot of energy, but somehow it still does not get the bad rap it is supposed to get. Now, soil erosion is another aspect of it, and this is something which, in my opinion, no government has been taking seriously. And in a few years, we are actually going to lose a very big percentage of agricultural fertile land. The arable land ratio, you can read the slide. It's whatever it is there. It is extremely terrible right now. Even the statistics we have are from a few years, many years ago. This estimated all government of India estimate. They are actually from a few years ago, and whatever it is projected to decline to 0.15 hectares. This is for global, but in India it is already 0.15 hectares. Per capita arable land in India is already 0.15 hectares, which for the global statistics, it is projected to be by 2050. India is already as bad as that. And it is projected to be even worse in a few more years. Now, this means that we are actually losing arable land very, very, very fast. And the beef industry, all this whole, the usage of land. When you use land, first of all, for these cattle ranching, because then there is a problem of overgrazing, then there is a problem of runoff. The rainwater is not going into the soil, and so the top soil is the only fertile soil. The top 6-inch soil of any soil is the fertile soil. The rest of it is just it does not have those nutrients which are needed for agriculture. So when that soil is lost because the soil is not properly bound, it has not been properly cultivated for like ranching and these kind of things, then it is lost forever. It takes 500 years to rejuvenate that topsoil. 500 years. So we are not going to see that topsoil come back in our lifetimes. And once this is lost, because of, like I explained, first of all, because of the cattle ranching, overgrazing. So some grazing is a different thing. But when you don't do it in a planned way, when you just let the cows out like that and they are grazing on the same patch of land every day, without anybody monitoring, controlling, or how they are grazing, then that soil loses its fertility. And the second aspect is, of course, the chemicals from these industries. So the whole process of slaughter of animals for beef and all these other meats, it releases a lot of toxins, it releases a lot of chemicals, a lot of pollutants. So when those pollutants pollute the soil, it is no longer, it cannot be used to feed them. And the right way of feeding these cattle is to actually feed them nutritious things like different variety of foods. But when you're doing it in a a mass scale, they're not feeding carrots to these cows. They're not feeding nutritious food. They just grow cow feed and they switch to monoculture crops. So monoculture crops are crops like corn and maize and these kind of things and some other cow feed crops, which they just keep growing over and over again on the same soil. So it's not, there's no crop rotation, there is no rejuvenation of the soil. Once you, if you keep growing the same crop over and over again, the soil loses its fertility. Whereas in crop rotation, you're actually recharging the soil with nutrients every time you grow this next crop, right? That's why we have rotations. But this kind of farming, which is done specially for the beef industry and related industries, is actually completely destroying the soil. And of course, we are doing nothing about it. That's like the underlying thing in all of these. We are doing nothing about it pretty much. So now I just come to the I've talked so far about the ecological aspect of it, and there is a lot more. I'm not mentioning about the pollution. I'm giving a brief summary of it. But actually, there is like so much pollution from not just beef industry and leather industries directly, but also indirectly in the form of pesticides. So the pesticides which are used in all of these inorganic farming practices, because they need a lot of food now, right? There's a lot of food which is needed. You need to feed animals as well as human beings, so you need to increase the yield. Whereas, just for comparison's sake, if we actually, whatever food we are growing, the livestock feed and crops which we are growing for animals, if instead of using beef, if we actually directly consume those crops for ourselves, we would be able to feed the whole world. Just one study from almost 10-20 years ago estimates just for the United States, if they switch from meat eating diet to a vegetarian or vegan diet or whatever you want to call it, but basically if they move away from meats, they will be able to feed more than 800 million more people. 800 million is a very big figure. Now, my book actually has some of these statistics that the number of, I think, people who are, hungry in the world or, below the poverty line and who cannot afford it, it's around 1 billion, I think, more than 1 billion, 1.2 billion or something like that. And there's so many figures, I forget the exact numbers, but you can check in the book, or if you want, towards the end of the presentation, I'll also refer to the book and tell you. But the statistics say that if the whole world were to go vegan or vegetarian, just move away from meats, then we'll actually be able to feed the whole world. All those hungry people in Africa, they don't need aid. They can just be fed with the amount of food we will be producing and saving instead of killing animals to get food. It's like a roundabout way of doing things, right? You first feed the animal, feed the animal, feed the animal, then you kill the animal and you eat that meat. It's such an inefficient process, even if you just see it purely from efficiency point of view, from a nutritional efficiency point of view. It's such an inefficient process. And of course, it's resource intensive, it's time intensive. Like, there are so many supply chain issues with that whole process. So, that is like, the most ironical aspect of it, that the same people who are against beef ban, who are against, these values which we have for in our culture, they're the same people who also claim to be working for the poor. Whereas if you actually just move away from this meat industry and beef industry, you can actually save so many resources that you will automatically have enough to feed the poor. Nobody needs to go hungry. That's the most important aspect of this industry, which people kind of like just gloss over. So now I'm coming to the health aspect of it, because many people claim that, oh, you need protein and what about health and blah blah blah. So I'll go over this part quickly, because I think a lot of it is already in the slides, and I think in the interest of time, I'll try to shorten this part. But do we really need that much protein is the question. Now, if you see again, this chart shows you, you can see the dark black line is the average daily requirement in terms of protein, and the green is the plant-based protein, red is the animal-based protein. And as you can see, almost every country is over consuming protein. They're consuming more protein than they need to, and whatever is the daily requirement, that can be met with plant-based protein. They just need to consume a little bit more. Now see, this is what this is percentage, right? If you're consuming 40% plant-based protein, and you need to take it to 50, whatever is the average requirement, you just need to take a little bit more protein. You can take plant-based protein, you don't have to take animal-based protein for that. And of course, a lot of the countries like US, Europe, Middle East, China, Latin America, it says former Soviet Union, so you can say, assume the Russian, subcontinent, that part. They are all consuming more protein than required. Now, what happens with this new protein thing, this whole meat protein thing, that a lot of it is actually really damaging for your body, extremely damaging for your body. And again, this is not my opinion. I've cited a lot of research in my book. This is said by the British Medical Council, or whatever that's called, BMJ. Then it is said by the American Medical Association. It is also said through a lot of intensive compilation of several studies of researchers. And the underlying fact is that beef and processed meats are actually declared as carcinogens. Beef is a declared carcinogen by the WHO. And we have, I know we have all sorts of opinions in WHO, but this has been so for some time now, and this is declared by a whole association of doctors across different countries. And this has been declared, taking a lot of experts from different fields also, not just the medical professionals, but across, working in different aspects. So this is of course a carcinogen, and there are other problems with it, like it causes bone deformation, it causes diabetes, it causes a lot of other health issues, which are very elaborately discussed in my book. There's a chapter which is called "What You Eat Is Eating You," and it is named that way for a reason, because literally what you're consuming is destroying your body if you're actually consuming meat. On the other hand, I'm just coming to the other side. What really happens if we actually switch to plant-based proteins? So if you see, this is a projection that pink is the conventional meat, yellow is the cultured meat, and green is the plant-based meats. So, the vegan meats that you're getting in the market now, they're projected to actually have a huge uptake in the future years. And is there an upside to it? So many people ask me, like, is there any health benefit or something? How can I convince my friends? Because many people don't vibe with the ecological. They like, yeah, we don't care about the environment. So, I mean, I'm not saying you should do that, but that's how people are. So, it's not just that you're damaging the environment. Now, this is a very important point to understand. First of all, the environment is not outside. This is something I've described in the book. Also, when we think of the environment, we always think of something outside, something separate from us, something away from us, not me, right? That's what we think of when we think of the environment. The environment is something where I'm living. It's got nothing to do with me. Whereas the Hindu idea of environment is not that. Environment is everything around you, not separate from you. Right? Environment is not outside. That's what I've mentioned it as in my book. No, your environment is directly affecting you because when all this meat industry is literally poisoning your food with chemicals, it is poisoning the water with toxins from the beef industry, it is poisoning the air from burning that stubble which is getting being grown, then your environment is directly in your face, right? You're drinking poisoned water, you're eating poisoned food, and you're inhaling poisoned air. So how is environment outside then? Environment is very much in your face. And then of course the last bit of the environment is what is on your plate. And this meat is so damaging, like I just explained. Whereas if you actually switch to a plant-based diet, now, there is a certain concept which has been explained in my book, and I will sort of try to briefly explain it in here. That plant-based diets have actually been scientifically studied to have caused anti-aging in human beings. Anti-aging means getting younger. So many people think this is some sort of a joke, or you are just trying to have a go at me, or you think, how can you have anti-aging just from eating plant-based? But this is actually studied and monitored and demonstrated. So as you see in the slides, there was a study in 2008 in which they took 3 months of plant-based diet, the study group, and they showed a significant increase in telomerase activity. So now telomerase are let me explain a little bit what this is. So our chromosomes basically have a certain length when we are born, and they have like these things called end caps, right? I call them end caps. So it's like the ends which kind of protect the whole chromosome from getting damaged, right, at the end. And as we grow older, the chromosomes keep sort of multiplying their strand of DNA, right? So now this telomeres with age, they actually suffer certain wear and tear, and they start getting damaged. So the chromosome length starts to get reduced, right? This much I think everybody should be able to understand. Now, there is a certain reduction in the length of these chromosomes with age, and this is, I'm just telling you the exact scientific thing which is there in these studies. And this reduction in length of these chromosomes is associated with weakening of your organs. So when we say anti-aging, it is not just about facial beauty. It is about how young your internal organs are, your visceral organs are. It's got to do directly with your health. So if your organs are young and healthy, young means healthy, means they are as good as when you were born. You have high immunity. That's what young means here, not how young you look by face, but how energetic you are. So how energetic you will be decided by how healthy you are and regenerated your organs are. So this reduction in the length of the chromosomes is associated with aging. When your organs are becoming weak, their for example, the digestive power or the power to produce the required fluids or chemicals or hormones is going away. That's what aging means. Now, when you take plant-based foods, only plant-based foods, no meat, then it's actually associated with increase in the length of chromosomes. Now, this happens by the process of secretion of a certain enzyme called telomerase. Telomerase is the enzyme which causes the telomeres to get repaired basically, and to actually helps in the rejuvenation of the telomeres. So end result is that your chromosomes are actually maintained as longer, healthier, and your organs are healthier. And this was a study which was done, and there was a follow-up study also in 2013. So the remarkable thing is that those effects of eating plant-based were actually sustained. So even if you have eaten meat your whole life, but if you actually switch to plant-based foods and if you stick to that, then you can actually sustain that effect in your health. So this is the demonstrated effect of it. Now, there are many arguments that, oh, plant-based meats are not going to fly and all that. It's not sustainable. No, this is just one slide which tells you about how little they disrupt. The only, you can see, this is the whole supply chain cycle. The whole number of players is indicated by the color at the bottom, and you can see that there are three aspects to it. So this is from a white paper by A.T. Carney. They've done a report on this. So they have basically demonstrated that if you actually switch from animal meats to plant-based meats, it's only going to disrupt a very small part of that supply chain, and even that disruption can be managed. So, for example, like the farmer is probably the person who is directly affected from switching to plant-based. So if people stop eating beef, the second question is, oh, what will people do? What will these farmers do? Well, they can just grow food. You don't have to kill animals. It's the very simplest answer. I don't know why people don't think of this answer, but you can actually just grow food instead of, you have land, you have resources, you have everything. Why can't you just grow food instead of killing animals? And there is, especially in the West, there is also a very big trend of cow cuddling and recreation, and people take weekend getaways to dairy farms and things like that. So you can actually just make your farm humane. And there was a project in the United States. It was called transformation. So it was by a friend of mine. He was leading this project called transformation, where they were trying to get these people who have these slaughterhouses and these meat production units and all that. They move to a humane life cycle, move away from meat production basically, and move towards farming instead. So it's very feasible, it is very doable, and it has been done. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's not just a lofty idea on paper, it has been done. There are people doing it, and there are many people who have reported feeling so wonderful after shifting to a humane thing, because they're like, okay, this is it feels so good. So I don't mean, actually I have a lot to say, but I think it's already been like 45 minutes. So I'm just going to conclude in the next 5 minutes. And I just wanted to highlight that a lot of these problems are actually solved by the humane industry, which I'm suggesting in the book. Now, because it's a very big topic, that's why I was a bit worried that I will get a bit sidetracked. But what to do? There's so much to talk. So, in this book, what I've tried to show is that actually you can move to a humane model, and the cow itself is central to that. So, I don't know how many of you know about biogas, but biogas was an invention from India, and Indians first produced biogas from cow dung. So just recently, I saw one member of parliament posted something very abusive about how our whole economy is becoming, just centered on cow dung and Gaumutra. But actually, if we really move to a cow dung based economy, we will become extremely prosperous, because China used this model. So China started creating biogas many years ago, many decades ago, and now they have a huge percentage of renewables as part of their energy equation, whereas India doesn't have the same. Now there is something called a biodigester. it's an equipment, and what you can do is it takes cow dung and all other kind of night soil and other agricultural waste into it as the feeding item, and it creates biogas as one of the products and biofertilizer as the second product. So, and this biofertilizer is basically devoid of all these harmful chemicals. It's a natural fertilizer similar to what you would get from composting and things like that, and it binds a lot more of the carbon into the soil compared with the NPK fertilizers which we currently use in our farming practices. So it's not only good for the soil, it's also helpful in actually binding back carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the soil. So see, carbon dioxide is harmful in the atmosphere, but when it's bound to the soil, it changes into a form which is good for us, because carbon in the soil is part of, like, it's part of life, right? Carbon is there in every life form. So that is the best aspect of this whole biogas industry. But India has not used it, not multiplied it to the extent to which we could have. With the number of cows we have, India has more than, I think, 300 million cows or something. And of course, we have other animals also. Their waste can also be used for generating this. So we have actually solved two problems in one go. One is we are generating energy, a source of energy, which is biogas. So biogas, if you actually have a huge farm, you can use this biogas to generate electricity. And it has been done. There are places where they are doing this. So you can actually recycle cow dung into biogas, into electricity, instead of going with fossil fuels. And on the second hand, you're generating biofertilizer as a part of the same process. This is anaerobic digestion of it. And you are literally using only cow dung as the resource. Imagine, you don't need to do anything else. You only need to buy that machine and install it. So biogas can also be used for as cooking gas in households, and it has been used. And this technology itself has been used in many countries. It's not something only exclusive to India or only something Indians are using. And cow dung ash, which is Bhasma, which I was talking about in the beginning, is considered to be very sacred. Bhasma is made from cow dung. Many people don't realize it, but the Bhasma we put on our foreheads as a part of yagyas and all that, it's made from cow dung. And the same cow dung ash is a very good adsorbent for heavy metals and some other pollutants as well. So, that same water which we polluted with beef industry can actually be cleaned with cow dung ash if you use our cattle in a humane way. So this cow dung ash, the Bhasma, is a very good adsorbent for separating heavy metals from water. Okay, we'll come to this later. Right, so this is a therapy. Now, this is actually such a long topic that it's very difficult for me to cover it in just a presentation. This is a topic on its own, actually, cow therapy. But just to give a very brief overview, cow therapy has been proven to get people out of fatal diseases like cancer. And this is again documented. So many people, mock it and all that, but the fact is that it is actually researched. It is not that it is only a claim. It is researched and it is proven that many people who are in last stages of cancer, they were taken as subjects. These people had no other go. They could not afford chemotherapy and all these things. So they were given cow therapy. So cow therapy is where Gaumutra is used as one of the base ingredients, and of course they have other Ayurvedic ingredients into it. And so that therapy has actually been able to save people's lives. And there are many other diseases for which Gaumutra can be used as a therapeutic agent. And of course, Ayurveda, you can see the slides, includes Gaumutra as a very important aspect. All the products you get from the cow are extremely important in the whole of Ayurveda. So pick up any Ayurvedic book, any Ayurveda book, open any page, and you will see at least something from the cow over there. So that is the challenge I had when I was writing this book, that what reference should I give? The whole book is only talking about that. So I picked up Charak Samhita. I have 2 big volumes of it here, and I was like, what do I cite from this? Everything uses either cow milk or ghee or curd or Gaumutra or Gomaya or cow dung. Something or the other is used in almost every second or third item in that scripture. So that is, of course, the significance of it in Ayurveda, but even in allopathic treatments, um, Gaumutra improves the bioavailability of drugs. So I don't know how much people are absorbing right now. Actually, I feel like people might have tuned out. So I don't want to go too scientific. But so bioavailability means whatever drugs you're already taking, it gets absorbed better in the body. So a lot of times when you're taking these, you're popping antibiotics and all these things, a lot of it remains in the body and it becomes kind of like toxins, right? Because it's not fully absorbed into your bloodstream. But when you're taking any drug with Gaumutra as the base, it actually improves the availability of those drugs. It's absorbed better inside your body. So these are some of the very key aspects of therapy. Now, I just want to talk about the Cownomics model now. This is some of the, you can go over this if you like. This is some of the research. There's so much research that I didn't know again what to keep and what to leave out. I've just kept one of this. This you can see is the cancer research and extract from that. You can see that the cancer cells have how much they are reduced from using the cow urine distillate. Okay, so now I just want to summarize whatever I was talking about. It's still not complete. The book is very, very detailed. I have only given an overview of it. But the model I want to suggest is a humane model in which all these, units, components are there together within, say, a 5 or 10 kilometer radius. First is the Gaushala, where it is a humane cow shelter where cows are neither slaughtered, not deprived of milk, not deprived of nutrition. The second is agricultural land with organic farming, because the cow is already giving cow dung, which can be made into biofertilizer. The second is a grazing pasture, which is in a managed way. It's not that uncontrolled grazing or anything like that. And rainwater harvesting system, solar panels, biogas register, as I explained, and a power plant. So, it can actually become self-sustaining. If you have a big enough goshala, so even 200 cows if you have, and you actually install a biogas digester, you can create electricity from the biogas you create from that. And that electricity can power your whole goshala, essentially. And home craft center and all up. I don't want to go into the details of what all you can make from cow dung, because you can make so many things from it. Then, of course, market space learning center. So this is the model which I have given, because, like I explained, there is a huge economic cost to every aspect of the ecological cost, which I explained. So this is a model in which you can keep cows, but you don't slaughter them. You don't use them for leather. You don't hurt them, essentially. So you actually live with the cow. You don't use the cow. There's a difference between the two. So there's, of course, I still have a lot to say, but I think I would like to open it up to questions, and I want to also see how much, if people are actually able to absorb this, and if they're actually finding it interesting, or if they have any other questions related to whatever I've shared.
Okay. Thank you, Arti, for this wonderful presentation, sharing all this data, hardcore numbers with us. And, coming from data scientist, it's pretty, authentic, credible. My question is regarding this about number. What happens when you show these numbers to one who does not believe in all these things? What's his first reaction? Let's say, how how do they handle it? Do they believe it? Do they do they become a skeptic?
See, actually, most people, who are hardcore, say, meat eaters, or they are like, my food, my choice, they are in some sort of a denial. They don't care about the numbers, because, like, these numbers are not something which I have created again. I have used it from very, very credible sources, right? So, if you look at it as only numbers, and it's very easy to ignore it, which is what people do, that, oh, they may have done this or they may have done that, it's not applicable to me, it's not applicable to me. They're like, there are 1,000 ways of arguing back if you look at it as just a number. But if you actually look at it as how it is affecting your life, then it makes a lot more sense. So the numbers are there to show the scale of the problem and how much of a mess we have created. Basically, it's important to understand that, and many people do understand that. But the way to make people really understand it, who don't believe in numbers, like you said, many people are skeptics and stuff like that, they need to understand how it's affecting their life. So that's why I've tried to give, like, a 360-degree understanding of it, that even the air you're breathing is affected by it, even the food you're eating is affected by it.
My next question is also related to this. Since these data started coming, I think from last 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
What?
Oh my God, sorry. I was just clicking on the chat button. Somebody had pinged. So sorry.
Okay. No problem. I'll take questions from there. Okay. So what
Yes.
changes you have seen, and those who are reporting about these numbers, who have published these numbers, so do you see any changes in practices in Western countries, like among Western intelligentsia or universities or somewhere? Are these data making any impact on the practices of anyone, like since they started coming?
Right. So this, as you pointed out rightly, all the studies have only been done in the last 20 years or something. Before that, there was very less interest. Even though there may be some isolated researchers, they weren't getting the kind of attention which they're getting in the last 20 years. So I think some places they have started, like many big brands I have seen have started going vegan, like cruelty free. I mean, vegan is a very heavily loaded word, but cruelty free. And some places they've started banning beef. Actually, in many countries like UK, in US, also some places they have banned beef, and they're moving towards this plant-based meat options. So there has been a growing interest towards it. But the biggest challenge is that whenever it comes to this question of beef and meat industry and all, there's always so much politics around it that it's very difficult to implement any policy or implement anything as a law for people. That always gets wrapped in like controversy of all sorts, because it always becomes a question of right wing versus left wing kind of politics in every country, not just in India. And the narratives are very, very different. So in India it is, for example, like the Hindu society which is against beef ban, largely speaking, whereas in many other countries, the so-called conservatives, they are hardcore meat eating people. So it is mostly the left, the, you can say, the Labour Party or the Democrats or all these people, they have a little more interest in these movements. So it's very difficult to even understand what the politics around it is, because it's very different in every country. And that is why I have seen that the countries which have successfully implemented anything are the ones where everything is not that much politicized. So some of the smaller countries which have successfully moved towards even, say, organic foods. So organic foods use organic fertilizers, right? They are the ones where it has been successful. So moving towards, like, I think Denmark is one country which has made organic foods very popular and they have become a mainstream choice. There's Burma, which has gone completely organic. The whole country has gone organic. Sorry, not Burma. I think Bhutan or Burma. Bhutan, sorry. So the whole country has gone organic. And in India, Sikkim is one state which is relatively not a part of the everyday political discussions. They have their own culture and they're sort of a little bit segregated from the whole country. They have their own political party and everything. So they have been successful in moving towards organic. So the whole state is organic. So in my observation, at least, I've seen that for this to be successful, there needs to be less politics around it. If so, people are also more accepting. It is less controversial because when it gets mixed with vested interests of politicians, it stops being believable. It's just that. That's all there is.
Right. So, what about Indian policymaker? Are they noticing these data numbers or rethinking about their policies related to dairy farming or something related to that?
Not at all. Not even the least in bit interested so far, at least. I think one of my objectives is to make them aware of it and to make them understand it. And like you were asking most about these numbers, right? How much it is impacting the environment and things like that. So that is not happening at all. And actually, leaf ban is a provision in our constitution. So if you see section, I think Article 44 in the constitution, it talks about banning slaughter of all gavanch. So it is there, and we can actually implement it as a law if you really want to. But there is no talk of it. There is no interest in it, and even the state-sponsored gaushalas, they're in a very terrible state. If I have to speak the truth. I understand that they have tried to give a good initiative, and it's a good initiative. They wanted to have a lot of states gaushalas, right? The government gaushalas, but the animals are not really cared for because it's just one policy which is implemented on paper, and then nobody is seeing what is actually happening there. If the cows are really even getting food and water, basic things like food and water, right? So no, it's this the interest from the state has only been on paper till now, not in practice.
Right.
Yeah, Namaste, Artiji. That was a wonderful presentation, a lot of data, which probably many of us, even those that were against beef eating and meat eating, are not aware of. I just wanted to know, with such convincing data against beef eating, is the global scientific community doing enough, publicizing this enough, and discouraging beef eating, or are they also going along with the political tide?
So there are actually two lobbies. Scientific community is not as homogeneous as we think there is. So the hard fact here is that what many of us don't realize that the meat lobby, the meat industry, is a very big lobby in Western countries, especially in the United States and even in Europe. It's a very big lobby which invests huge amounts in scientific research. So if you actually see, there is a there's like a huge community of scientists just paid to justify meats and meat consumption in any way possible. So, and of course, they will try to take all sorts of shortcuts and tamper the data and, take data which has bias in it or find places where it doesn't. There are a number of ways of distorting things. So, wherever scientists have done unbiased research, which is not funded by this meat industry lobby, there they have found what we are discussing. But because there is a parallel lobby, see, meat industry is like in trillions of dollars. I think $1 trillion of meat industry will be lost if it shifts to plant-based meats. That's the number given by that report in Carney, which I was referring to. They have projected that if plant-based meats replace the meats in the market, they will lose $1 trillion. It's a $1 trillion industry, which is at risk. So they are going to fight tooth and nail to, for their money. It's basically just money driven. So that is why the scientific community is not as homogeneous as we think it is. But because there is a very big lobby also, which is trying to do at least some unbiased research, which realizes that it is important for the whole of humanity. At least there is considerable research to point out that meat is bad for all these XYZ reasons, whatever I discussed. So there is like it's like an intellectual war which is going on. So there is no one consistent narrative there, and the other aspect of it is also, like I was discussing, politics is never too far, even in the scientific debates. Right now, if tomorrow, like actually not tomorrow, just 2 days ago, Greta Thunberg came out saying the same thing which I've said in my book. Now that becomes a huge problem because she's a political tool. She's not really a genuine researcher or a genuine activist, or there is nothing genuine about her essentially. But when she starts talking about these things, it becomes a big mess for people like me who are trying to do genuine work. Because now there is one person who is literally has criminal ties is talking about the same thing. So, that's why this, it's very difficult for me to answer your question because there is no one straight answer. There is one community which is genuinely trying to do some research, and they have done a lot of research, and they have tried to make a difference in many places. But there is also a parallel industry which is trying to, fight for the survival of the meat industry. And meat industry is very, very centralized in these countries. There are two, three very big companies which control a very big market share. So, they have a lot of money. If you read another book, it's called Meatonomics, which I have cited in my own book. That guy has given a very big breakdown of how the funding is done for this meat industry, and he has given a lot of numbers. If I start explaining that again, it'll take a lot of time. But if you're really interested, you can check out his book also. He has given how this meat industry is controlling the narrative and the market.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think Arti, we also witnessed that in various universities of America they are now practicing something like beefless Thursday or meatless Tuesday, so kind of bringing awareness about consuming less meat and consuming less beef. So do you
Right.
think if it is coming in academia, it will have its impact down the line, maybe even 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, among masses also?
Yes,
Because
I think so. I believe so. Like, because academia is actually the place where all narratives are initially set. So even the media actually picks things from academia and then they popularize it, or then they sensationalize it, or they do their own journalism around it. But originally, all of these, like you were saying, all the narratives and research all comes from academia. So because they are promoting it, there's hope. At least there's some hope that they will shift more.
So we have next question from Kapil Ketan. He is asking, recently scientists in North America found two superfoods. The name is Catalyst and Cactus. In cattails. That is the most yielding food on earth, even 140 tons of roots per hectare and 32 tons of floor per hectare. It will provide, so in future it will reduce the footprint without reducing the meat consumption, or along with meat, reducing the meat consumption. Do you think they are they are discovering traditional foods or coming up with superfoods or something like that, which can replace meat consumption?
I think actually there is a lot of research going on in this particular aspect, and they're also coming up with superfoods, like you said, and unfortunately also lab grown meat. But it's fine. I mean, the lab grown meat is not really that viable to people. First of all, secondly, it's extremely expensive. But at least it reduces cruelty, but it does not reduce other aspects of health aspects. Like, in the sense, I mean, I'm just giving an unbiased perspective here that the lab grown meat is synthesized from cells, so they culture it in the lab. So it does not have the same environmental consequences. It does not have the same kind of other things we discussed. But health wise, it is still bad for you. So then it is like left to your choice. But the superfoods are not. I have not seen a whole lot on it, but I know that they are trying to find meat alternatives because it is also energy intensive, like I was saying. So because it guzzles so much of energy that it's not going to be sustainable after 30 years or something.
Right. So I think next question is from Swaminathan Prabhu, who raised his hand. So please go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Arti ma'am, for a wonderful presentation. So, in fact, I know everyone is worried about how political parties are going to, react to it. What are the steps they are going to do? So, in my part, what I have decided 2-3 years ago, when I also felt, something going wrong, so I started, hunting for a land, and finally I found a land, and now I made my own goshala now. So around 3 cows we have saved from slaughtering, and now we got the cows to our goshala. Like you mentioned in your Gonomics, like we have also got the you know uh, uh, biogas and solar base power and everything. Few other points you mentioned like market space and learning center and all. Can you please throw a little more light in those points, ma'am, if you don't mind?
Sure. So, see, in my experience, I've talked to a lot of people who have dairy farms and goshalas and all these shelters. So, one of the bigger challenges they face is how to sell it, right? And I have seen this problem how to sell these products from the cow, like not just milk and curd, but also like fertilizer or also cow dung cakes. There are many things you can make from cow dung, right? And even food, organic food. So there needs to be a market for it. So if there is a market within that same area, like if it's, I'm talking about a 5 to 10 kilometer radius here, which is close to your goshala, it actually reduces first of all the cost of transportation and then the cost of the food itself. So big part of the cost of organic items right now is the cost of transportation. But if you can actually create a market space which is selling your products, and maybe you can also sell some other products, it has to be like detailed out based on where you are, what is the most feasible thing for you. But if you can actually create a market place where everybody knows that, you know, every Monday or every Tuesday or every Sunday, whatever, you are selling there, then it's actually much more easier to sell, because one of the challenges which people I've seen face is that they don't know how to sell their products. And then if you actually have a marketplace where you can sell, you can also advertise it, you can market it, and that draws people to one fixed place, as opposed to, you know, trying to get distributors, and then distributors can also pick it from there. So that becomes like a one channel which you own for marketing your products. Otherwise, there is a lot of there is a lot of uncertainty involved in that whole process of selling. So that marketplace basically addresses that aspect of it. And the second is the learning center is not like a very crucial part of it, but the idea of having a learning center is that, see, farming practices need to be learned, and it needs to be based on your geography and your soil structure, right? So, a lot of times, again, I've seen in all of these goshalas, they don't have experts to teach them how to do this. So, this try organic farming, then they are not successful, they don't get high yields, and then they just give up. They just say try it for 1 year or something, they're like, we're not getting any yields, or we are not able to manage this problem, that problem. They don't know how to really actually sustain it for their particular geography, their particular soil, their particular climate. So this is a learned skill. This is not something which you just try, hit and trial kind of a thing. So there are experts who are experts in organic farming, and they actually teach you this thing. There's a university in the US, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi's University. I've forgotten the full name of the university, but that's the university, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi's University. He has a very big academic center in the United States. So one of the fields they teach over there is this organic farming, and they teach it on site. So they will take you to a farm and they will teach. So my vision, you can say, is to have that kind of a system here, where, you know, the people who are experts in organic farming, they actually go and train your people. So because it's not going to be just one person who does the farming. There are going to be maybe 5 to 10 people involved, and they all need to be taught how to do it. So the learning center is mainly for that purpose. So you can teach them. Of course, you'll be teaching them more in the field, but still, like, I want this knowledge transfer to become a mainstream part of our culture, because it has got destroyed. We don't have any real system where we are learning farming properly, right? So the learning center is envisioned as that, basically. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. You answered. Yeah, in fact, yeah, learning center, I got it. So I also got trained for this organic farming
Okay.
a place near Tamil Nadu, Karur. There
Mm.
is one organic scientist called Nammalwar. I don't know whether you heard of him. He has created a farm around 60 acre where he trained people at free of cost for organic farm. So around 2 months I
Yes.
have taken a training there. So after that only we started. But due to this, continuous back-to-back lockdowns and all, there is a lot of
Yeah.
setback. So if there is one suggestion or advice, if you have to give people like us who really want to work towards this cause, but getting backed up because of many other reasons, like government not supporting us. Even if you look at the solar panel which I have put, I wanted a clean energy. I don't want to burn fossil because of the power requirement of my farm. So I have put a solar wherein the government did not support us anything. I have spent almost 3 lakh, 3.5 lakh for that.